No matter where you're from, we're glad that you're here.
We are a community of learners.
We recognize and value the worth of every individual on our campus.
We are committed to broadening minds,
opening doors, and reaching higher.
No matter who you are, you have a place here to pursue your dreams and build your future.
We grow by engaging with multiple ideas and beliefs.
We are international and inclusive.
We warmly open our arms to all students.
We lift each other up and we move forward as one.
Because we know we are stronger together.
We are Shoreline Community College, and you are welcome here.
Selamat datang teman-teman, kalian semua diterima di sini.
Siempre serás bienvenido aquí en Shoreline.
我们欢迎你来到雪兰社区学院。
Bạn được chào đón.
आप सबको Shoreline Community College में स्वागत है.
Shoreline はあなたを歓迎します。
الكل مرحبا به في كلية Shoreline Community College.
我哋歡迎你嚟到雪蘭社區學院。
خوش آمدید. في تمارين كوليجية.
여러분을 환영합니다.
أنت مرحب بكم هنا.
Powerful images, powerful words, powerful message that we all bring every day in the actions that we take. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. I want to thank our international education program, particularly Diana and Samara, and all those who suggested that we do this video. I hope you're prideful of it. It's going to be up on all of our social media starting today. And I think it really, really touches a chord of what students can expect when they come to Shoreline. So again, thank you for coming to our final campus update for winter term. We had two this term, and so we're really pleased that you're here. My role is to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing for the next hour and a half together. So again, welcome. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are going on and have gone on this quarter around personnel and expectations. And then we're going to get right into some questions that people may have about our budget. For those of you who go to our board meeting, you'll have already had a primer about that, but Stuart Triple, our Senior Executive Director and CFO, is going to come up and talk about that, as well as CTC Link. I'm sure many of you have heard about that across our system. And then some things about our steering committees. Hopefully, by 1:55, we're going to get right into our work around values. A lot of things have been going on. Laura Rehrman, who is a special assistant to me and doing a lot of community outreach and engagement work, has been across our campus talking to students, as well as many division departments, looking at and asking, what does it look like when we're doing our values? So we're going to go through that. We've got, I think, pretty close to our final draft, but we need your eyes on it. We need your thinking. We need your hearts and open minds to help us to see, are these the things that we associate with the values that we're listing? And then we'll do an evaluation, which we always do. So let me talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened over the last quarter. As you know, I've sent out 2 emails, one on February 22nd that explains some of the changes that have gone on that have been quite rapid and, of course, create a little bit of unsettledness out there. And I want to just underscore with all of you that the work that you do every day is so critical. I always say you are the Shoreline experience. What you do and how you do it is the promise that we make to our students. And so, although it may be somewhat surprising to all of you at the college, for many who have had to, who are no longer here, we always take separations from the college really seriously. We have conversations with people. We do it respectfully, but always focused on what's best for the college, what's best for the individual, and what's best for our students and our communities that we serve. So I just wanted to share that. The other piece is that we want to make sure that you come to work every day, as I do, with joy in my heart. I was talking with a person who's in a leadership program throughout the state called WELA, and she wanted to learn more about what was happening at Shoreline because she sees great things there. here, and she wants, maybe to come and be a part of us at some point as she looks at her career. And I think it's because of what you do each day and the dedication and the passion that you bring. So I just wanted to share those things with you. If you haven't had a chance, we're working on getting information out. There was, as I said, an email I sent out on February 22nd. Allison sent out an email on March 7th that talked about what's happening in the academic and so in student services part of the house in terms of some interim reorganization, a realignment, I guess, not really reorganization. I want to also say that I think you've found me to be a planful person, and making sudden changes is not planful. So this is not a grand scheme around reorganization. If we were reorganizing, you would know about it. With that said, when we do have openings at the college, we will look at the best way to organize ourselves so that we can deliver on the plan that we worked on for over 16 months, and we're in the middle of it. So with that, if you have questions, please come up, talk to me, talk to your supervisor, talk to other ET members. We are open to talking with you. I've walked around campus. I've answered lots of questions. We want to be as open as we can, but we also want to be respectful as we can. So with that, I'm going to change the conversation to have Stuart Tribble come up and talk a little bit about our budget and some things that we can do now that position us really positively for 17-18. So Stuart, come on up.
Thank you, Madam President. In my copious amounts of spare time these days, Vice President Stevens has been teaching me a few Spanish phrases, so I'm going to try out a couple of them here. As you may know, Dr. Stevens has her PhD in Romance linguistics and speaks Spanish fluently. So for the budget, the phrase will be "Si se puede," yes we can. Just want to give a brief overview for those of you who have already heard this either at admin team or at the board. I apologize, but for those of you who haven't, I want to refresh your memory. We've talked about budget here before. Our budget, primarily for instruction and operational purposes, is coming from two main revenue sources. That is the state appropriation and tuition revenues. And we have other sources of revenue, of course. We have parking and bookstore and grants and contracts and a lot of different things. But let's think of state appropriations and tuition revenues as the two main sources. The state appropriation is determined by the allocation model that we've spoken about in these forums previously, and it's pretty fixed. It changes a little bit throughout the year, but we pretty much know going into the year what we're going to have. The tuition revenue is variable, and it depends on the number of students that we have. And so more students, more tuition; fewer students, less tuition. And so we track that very carefully throughout the year, the fiscal year, which begins on July 1st and ends on June 30th. So right now we're a little over halfway through our fiscal year. At the end of fall quarter, we were down in tuition revenue about $250,000 to $300,000. Okay, and that's because of two different and counterbalancing factors. As you have probably heard, our domestic enrollment, that is U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens, is up. It's up over same quarters in prior years. So this is great news. There's been a lot of hard work on a lot of different people's parts to get that, that number up. The international enrollment, however, is down. And that is, I want to emphasize, not due to the fault of anyone at the college or anyone in this room. International enrollment fluctuates, and I know that our international education team, and particularly recruiting and student support and leadership, work very hard traveling all around the world. But there are external conditions that there's only so much that we can do, and I don't need to go into too many of those, but if you read the news, there's some uncertainty around what it's like to be in the United States if you're from abroad, and that's one of the reasons that we have that great video that we rolled at the beginning of this meeting. So domestic enrollment up, international enrollment down. The net effect at the end of fall was around $250,000 to $300,000 down in tuition revenue. Now that's not an earth-shaking number on a budget that we're talking about here of close to $40 million. For winter, we experienced another shortfall. Again, not terribly surprising because winter is generally lower enrollment overall than fall. The way our enrollment naturally goes is fall, winter, spring. That's a natural fall off. And as of now, we are down for the year thus far, not including spring, around $735,000 in tuition revenue. So it's time to take a look. It's time to say, well, what can we do in the remainder of this year that will allow us to land as little down as we can be? And so we're going to look at doing 5 things, and Allison and I and President Roberts and others on the executive team are working on this, so we'll have more specific details, but these are the areas that we're planning to look at. First is, we're going to have conversations with budget managers about whether there are any goods and services expenses that can be slowed down or wait until next year. So this is not saying don't travel, this is not a ban, this is not saying don't buy what you really need to serve students, but let's ask, is there anything in the budget that we can perhaps delay or reconsider? So that's the first step. The second is we want to review the expenditures and yield that are going on, particularly in our international education recruitment. So as I said, we have great work, great recruiters, and I know that international education staff track the expenses that they're spending in different locations and the return on that, and we're going to take a close look at that as well to make sure that we're investing in the right parts of the world. The third thing that we'll be doing is, most of you are familiar with the ASAP process. It's the Abbreviated Strategic Action Plan, and it's a process that's overseen by the Strategic Plan and Budget Council. And it's going on right now. I believe they've completed their review and are about ready to hand the results off to the deans. Is that right? Quite soon. And we said this up front when we solicited ASAPs for proposals for this year. We're going to look specifically at these ASAPs that will increase revenue, i.e. increase enrollment, retention, completion. It's really not about revenue. It's sort of a bad way to put it. Increase enrollment, retention, and completion, which then serve our students and increase or decrease the shortfall in our tuition revenue. And fourth, we're going to be looking at permanent positions that are open and asking whether they need to be filled right away. So we're not talking about cutting positions, we're talking about looking at permanent positions that are currently open. Do they need to be filled right away? Do they need to be filled permanently? And fifth, we're going to be looking at opportunities to repurpose work. That is, if we have existing resources that can be used to do different things, where the need is greater, then we will look for opportunities to do that. So that's something that you'll be hearing more of from the executive team as we move forward into spring quarter. So that is the budget discussion. And I'm happy, by the way, to, as Cheryl said, if you have questions, come up to any of us after the update here. The next topic, as I promised, the last all-campus college update, is CTC Link. Our Spanish phrase here is así estamos, which I gather means, so this is where we find ourselves. And where we find ourselves is, if you've gone to council or commission meetings, or if you've talked with people from around the state, you know that there's a lot of uncertainty in the CTC Link project. Let me back up, and for those who are new, explain what this is. CTC Link is a business process replacement and improvement project that relies specifically on a new administrative computing system. So most of you, I guess, have heard, even if you don't use it, have heard about the HP. Wonderful computer system dating back to the 1970s. I love the HP. It's nostalgic. It reminds me of when I was in college. But it doesn't do a lot of things. And so we're moving to a new system that's been named CTC Link, that is actually a platform that is based on Oracle PeopleSoft, a very widely known and used industry standard. So where the status is now is there's a group of colleges. It's Tacoma Community College and Spokane District, which includes 2 community colleges in Spokane, and they are what's called the First Link colleges. So the First Link colleges were the first to implement CTC Link, and they asked to be in that group. They weren't forced. I think if asked again today, they might have a different answer. But they've done great work for the rest of us to show a lot of problems that we didn't expect. But if you think about it, we've got 34 community and technical colleges across the state of Washington. We all do things a little bit differently. And we've all been able to use the HP kind of the way we like to, because it had that flexibility. And we're going to have to do things more the same as we move into this new world. Now, you may have heard some schedules being proposed over the past, 4 years or something, about when our wave, we're in what's called Wave 2, there are 3 waves now, when Wave 2, which is where Shoreline is, was going to be going live, or when we were going to be getting ready to go live. And those deadlines and dates have come and gone. So last fall, the state board, which is running this project, said, okay, stop. Let's figure out where we are. So they hired an IT consulting firm called the Gartner Group to come out and take a look at where the first link colleges were, where the holes still were, and where we needed to focus. They did that. They got a good report, and now the focus is on getting first link colleges, i.e. Tacoma and Spokane District, so that they can function and function well. Then and only then will the state board move to Wave 1 and then to Wave 2, which is where we are. We don't have a date yet. When we have a date, I will look at it very carefully and decide whether to share it. But we don't have a date. On a personal note, I happen to have the privilege of serving next year as the IT committee chair for the Business Affairs Commission, so I'm going to be getting some good information through that process, and so I'll be definitely bringing that back to the campus. So that's where we are. If you've been wondering why we haven't been talking to you a lot about CTC Link, that's why. It's that we don't have a lot to tell you. You can certainly read the newspapers and see what the problems are. This will work. The system will work. Other colleges use it. It's just taking us a little bit of time to get there. And when it does work, it's going to offer some really great services to students, faculty, and staff. And again, with that, I don't have as much to tell you about that as I do on the budget, but I'd be happy to answer any questions after. Now, I believe Cheryl's going to come back and talk about steering committees.
Thank you, Stuart. Just to let you know, we are underway with all of our steering committees. So we have 5 steering committees, 1 council, and a coordinating committee. And we're all working on current documents. We're looking at baselines. We're looking at metrics. We're looking at actions that are going to be related to a 4 to 5 year plan. So all of them are moving ahead. Sponsors, myself, Allison, Stuart, Mary, we're all engaged, part of all of that. I see many of you who are on those committees. I'm so grateful. We're hoping, and you'll see this at the very end, that by this time at the end of spring, we haven't decided the format yet, but you'll have a chance to see the progress that's been made since fall. And I just want to thank the over 75 people who have been meeting very diligently over the last 5 months, seriously, who have done really great work and taken those 15 strategies, our 3 goals, student success, discipline excellence, and our 3 E's, ecological integrity, economic viability, and social equity, and taken those 15 strategies and really try to put them into actions and over a swath of time, so we can kind of get a sense of a shared vision of if we did all that work, what would it look like at this college in the years ahead. So things are going along, different rates, different paces, but we're making great progress. So I just wanted to let you know about that and what you can expect to see some information come out in spring. So with that, I'm going to ask Laura to come up. We're going to get right in, and you know what? It's 1:55. Wow. Last time we heard, and we do take your feedback very seriously, Laura's going to come up and we're going to go through all of she's going to kind of get us back into the work, kind of how we got to where we are, a little bit of what happened at Fall Convocation today, and then our work together. But I needed to have a little kibitz with her just before she does that. Just one moment. So talk amongst yourselves. I'm sure you know how to do that. We'll be back with you in 1 minute.
Okay, I am connecting the dots when Cheryl just connected the dot for me. And first of all, thank you very much for being here again in this group setting, because this group, our convocation at the start of the year, you each have been instrumental in getting us to this place today. The work that we're doing around values and behaviors, our strategic plan is not top-down. It is definitely dependent on your engagement. So I really applaud each of you for being here and continuing to stay enthusiastic about this important work. So we started 6 months ago at Convocation with a big all-campus discussion around our values. And we came up with this list. We all did, you all did. And you can see, as we discussed at the last campus update, that word respect was at the top. And what you see in the numerations there are the numbers of times those words showed up on the big scrap paper that you were working on the Post-its. We went from here as a campus and began to winnow down which are the words that we're going to be testing with all of us to say, are these the right words to express our values? So you all at the convocation identified words, you identified some behaviors, you prioritized those values, and that gave us the background to move forward to say, this is where we think we should start with value definition. 1, student-focused. And we heard in discussion here at All Campus, at admin team, with ASG, with the United Club Council, also those last 2 groups are students, with the business and Hope Division meeting, we heard maybe it ought to be student-centered. Maybe it ought to be a student-first attitude. Student success maybe should be the word. So when you looked at this last time, we had a larger funnel that we were beginning to hone down. The second one, respect, was obviously rose to the top, but underneath that, 2 other very important words showed up, integrity and honesty. So we put those out for you to talk about and these other groups to talk about. And then finally, inclusion. And what words were important under there? Diversity, equity, and social justice. So you all engaged in small group discussions, you engaged in discussions together. Thanks to Julie, we have reams of paper with those notes on it. Julie has done a terrific job compiling all that. Thank you, Julie. And thank you, Lori, who we all know is really behind all this. And so today, we're asking you to look at the second refinement of these values. Student engagement is the word that's come forward. And what has influenced that? Well, you're going to hear the next time, I think it's at the next all-campus meeting, we're going to be talking about the college identity. And what we heard, and you all participated in surveys on that, what we heard is the word engagement was really important, and engaged. So this is up here again for your consideration and discussion. It seems to us at this stage that student engagement is the right value description. Finally, of course, or secondly, respect, of course, is there, and inclusion. There are no changes there. So today, you each have on your tables 1 value with a number of behaviors listed under it. So I think student engagement is here, and respect is here, and inclusion is over there. And we're asking you to do the same thing we did last time, which is to discuss at the table the behaviors that are associated with these values. Because as we all know, it's one thing to say respect is a value, but it's another to describe the actions that demonstrate that value. And this is critically important work, because those actions, as we define them, are going to be how each of us defines our work and our behaviors in our own jobs, and they're going to be words that are going to be translatable and transparent to our students. So what does our action look like? How do we behave when we've described that action, which describes our value? So if you would please pick a recorder, because we're going to do the same as we did last time, that is get feedback and we'll capture notes. Lori is all primed to capture them. But also please note on those blank pieces of paper points in your discussion. We're going to be collecting all those and compiling those again. And you'll have, that's right. So you each have one value. If there are actions missing, please add them. If there are comments that you think are particularly important for the group to hear about those actions, please don't hesitate. So we're coming into the home stretch in this work, and I must say that this group is our most important funnel beginning. It will go down to admin, we'll go back to divisions, we'll go to students, and at the end of the day, we'll all understand what these actions look like, and everyone else who comes into our campus will understand that's a value in action. So go to it. We have 20 minutes or so, and then 20 minutes for feedback, and we'll see how the room goes. If you need more time, we have it. Thanks very much. Okay, let's hear from each other about our discussions at each table, and we're going to start with the student engagement. So for those of you who haven't had that, these are the behaviors and actions that you're going to hear feedback on. Please note that all the underlined words under each of these values are words that we actually heard in this meeting, the admin team, the students, etc. So they reflect the specific words that were used. I'm sorry I didn't make that clear before. So yes, first feedback. What are we hearing from your discussions?
Well, our group felt that we need to put on top of all the other behaviors include student input and gain student input so we can make informed decisions about all these other points, which are very valid, but we have an idea what the students need.
Yes.
We need to have an ongoing discussion, because I know in my job I see that changes all the time.
Yes, thank you very much. I know that a table right behind you said the same thing, so we'll include that. Thank you. Any others on student engagement? Comments from your groups?
Hi, I'm Leah. One thing that we thought could be combined is take actions to address their needs and be responsive, into something like take action by being responsive and flexible for students to address their needs.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And I know, sorry, I don't know your name, but there you go. George, is that right, George?
My name is George. And
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So we agree with everything on this list. We wanted to add a couple of things. One particularly is creating a welcoming environment for students online and on campus. Mm-hmm. And setting clear expectations by simplifying processes and policies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. It's a very good point, George, that in each of our jobs in different areas, there will be different emphasis around what does support mean online, what does support mean in the classroom, etc. So thank you. Good. Yes, right behind you there. There you go.
So we felt that the behaviors up there are being done right now, and we want to continue doing these things. Also publicize is my voice odd or is that normal?
No, you sound perfectly fine.
I can hear myself twice. All right, so we want to publicize that we are doing these things, that we're very engaging and caring of students. The one thing we thought of that is related and maybe missing is that we're also very engaging and innovative in how we teach. And especially millennials want higher engagement activities, and are we telling the world that we do this here at Shoreline?
Yes, thank you. And I would just add to this table discussion asked, where will these be posted? Where are we going to be held accountable to these, and where is this transparent to our different communities? So very good question. Reminds me, we're going to collect everything you've written on, so if you've written on these pages or the blank ones, please turn them in. We're going to capture all these comments again. Any others from the student engagement discussions? Yes, right here.
Okay, I think we sort of just jumped ahead into some specific examples of these behaviors. I'll mention a few. Under supporting and encouraging, just that reminder that we really need to take time to listen. And we acknowledge that that can be hard to do in certain places depending on where we work, but just to go slowly, take a deep breath, and really listen. And several of us here work with ESL students, and in particular, sometimes on our wish list is kind of just clarifying what access we have as far as interpreter services. Some of us do because we work next to someone who's like quadruple lingual right here. But just sometimes in terms of, especially for newer students, our ABE, ESL students, refugee students, international students, just that quick access to how can I be speaking with an official interpreter who can truly explain the nitty-gritty administrative stuff that it takes to be a successful student here. And then just incorporating high-touch activities, you know, hey, go to registration. It's like, come on, I'll walk with you up there. They're very kind people up there. Let's go. Also, we talked about Ask Me. I think many of us know what that is at the beginning of the quarter when we have our Ask Me buttons or the big placards, but maybe increasing that. And also at this time of the quarter when people are starting to worry or fret or, you know, wanting to register but not quite sure what to do. Just having more friendly faces out and about to be able to answer those questions. And we talked about some of the ways that cross-campus collaboration is happening. And Julie reminded us of the scope. I always forget what the SCOPE is, but just for staff folks to come together frequently to be able to share those administrative changes, whether it's a travel form or how you go about getting food for a gathering and that kind of stuff. And just sort of starting to talk about ways that that could be done in other pockets. I know Dr. Roberts has begun meeting with folks from across campus to talk about stuff. So, anything else?
Great, good job. Any other student engagement comments? We're right here with Samira.
Okay, so this is Samira, and we spent a lot of time talking about the setting high and achievable expectations, sub point, I guess, the goal, and whether that was actually something that we talked about in the behaviors, and we felt that maybe not, that might have been missing from the behaviors, the setting high and achievable expectations, and so that might be something to think about in terms of what might be missing. Also, one of the things we talked about was when we say setting high and achievable expectations, is that too top down? You know, are we involving the students in setting expectations that they can kind of set for themselves? So, you know, how can we involve them more in doing that? And then we talked about fostering cross-campus planning, collaboration, and dialogue, and we weren't quite sure how that fit in with student engagement per se. I mean, it could be a sub-bullet point, but anything else? No? Okay, that's about it.
Good, thank you very much. And one more here.
Hi, I'm Alan from the CEO program. And some things that we talked about in terms of student encouragement and engagement, just, making sure we have real high-touch encouragement of successes, however that is. I know some of us do like high fives. That doesn't work for everybody, but just being aware when students are doing well, even on what may seem small to us, but just getting right in there with them, And then in terms of resources, we said like keep a resource list. So you're going to ask your students' needs. You got to be able to help them fulfill their needs. So we have an updated resource list that we can refer people to different programs or for example, we have counseling here at school, and we'll walk them up to the counseling office. And I think that's all I'm going to talk about from our group, because a lot of it got touched on.
Great. Thank you very much. So round of applause for student engagement. Good job. Really, thank you. Good discussion. Really interesting comment from Evan about the high five that may or may not work for students, and that sensitivity is something that, of course, we're all aware of. And actually, I believe it's in respect, in active listening. We looked at that originally. There were a lot of comments about make eye contact, but that was not one that we put in front of you, because for some cultures, that's not so comfortable. So we have a little tricky job here to pay attention to all the differences among all of us as staff and certainly among students. So next group is in the middle. That is respect, isn't it? I don't know which one it is. I forgot where the papers are. Oh, inclusion. All right, we'll go to inclusion. So comments from the inclusion discussions.
Hello, my name is Beta. It rhymes with data. We had a really interesting conversation around inclusion, and I think we agreed with a lot of what was here, and just had a few suggestions about maybe some more specifics. So in the first one with suspend judgment, one of the things we talked about was what that really means, and the idea of maybe avoiding assumptions based on appearances and not, and so it is a judgment, but there's also that assumption that you might even not rise to the level of judgment, and thinking about incorporating that into the definition. Communication skills that bring colleagues and students together. Again, some more specifics about what that means. Maybe that means asking questions to seek understanding. Maybe that, again, a few more specifics there. Creating a welcome environment. Similarly, what does that mean? What do you do to create a welcoming environment? And then embracing diversity of all students and staff in our community. We had a really good conversation at our table about different types of diversity and which types we more often see represented and which times we less often see represented. And at our table, things like age and socioeconomic status, gender identity, those came up as things that might be we less often think about, both in in our print materials and all of the ways that we communicate about who we are. And then in the behaviors, seeking out and encouraging involvement in underrepresented staff and students, we kind of took that a step further to say, really the purpose of that is seeking out different perspectives, and that sort of, that idea that we are here as a marketplace of ideas, and that's why we want people represented is for those different perspectives. And then the intentional focus on increasing diversity of employees. The intentional focus language was really great, really agree with that. And then thinking about the future, we also have to think about increasing competencies in the staff that we already have and employees and staff we already have. So if we don't have the opportunity to hire a lot of new employees and diversify that way, what does that mean for the employees that are here in serving our diverse students? In anticipating barriers to help students overcome and remove obstacles, that we need to know what those barriers are, and that may involve a lot of cross-campus communication. All over in different pockets of campus, we might see and understand different barriers, and so it's a matter of sharing that with each other, making sure that we're all together and listening to each other and listening to our experiences with student barriers. And then the next step is connecting students with resources to overcome those barriers. So, that idea of training, communication with each other, that was really a theme that came out to live up to our value of inclusion.
Great. Thank you very much, Beta. Thank you. Another table here in the inclusion section. No more comments? One in the back, Amy. Beta brought up a really good point that I heard otherwise, that also what we're beginning to identify out of this discussion is what are the skills that each of us, individually, our groups or our teams, need training on. And President Roberts is really going to start pushing forward kind of organizational development, individual development. So this will help us, this discussion today will help us all be on the same page about what our behaviors look like. And then what do we need to be really good at this? So thank you very much. Yes, Amy.
Hi, my name's Amy, and we talked a lot about inclusion, and Beta said a lot of great things, so I'm trying not to repeat any of them. What did come out from our group, which was larger, asking underrepresented staff and students, how can we help? What do you feel, you're not being included in, or just how to make things better on campus? So getting that input from the people in the groups that we're trying to encourage, instead of just deciding what they need. In terms of, I'm jumping ahead to barriers, but how to reduce them. We were talking about online students, because I work with online students and faculty, and we talked about the barriers that exist for online students, and how if we want them to access all the great resources we have on campus, how scary it might be for them to come to campus when they never have, and what we could do. And we talked about specifics about maybe sending a one-day parking permit, explaining how hard parking is in the middle of the day, so if they come on their lunch hour from work, they may not be able to park in the main part of campus, and so make sure they know about the Sears lot and the shuttle, and sort of saying, hey, it might be a little frustrating, and setting them up to succeed when they come to campus, instead of, come to campus, oh, you have to pay, you won't be able to park, and you'll never find my building, sorry. They're gonna come to campus and they're just gonna leave, and they won't get the services they need. So that was one example. Survey boxes on campus, so students and staff can put in info and ideas. And if they include an email address, making sure there's someone on point to get back to them so that they know they were heard. And then we thought a lot of ideas of sort of how to embrace the diversity of all our students and staff in different ways. Like, I guess there used to be a clothing swap in the spring. I don't know anything about that, but people at the table were saying it was really great. I think the classified union folks put that together. That brought people from all over campus together, students and staff interacting. And acknowledging that a lot of employees have, and students have, skills that maybe aren't related to what their job is. So we have artists and photographers and theater folks and on, and could we, highlight those skills? Someone suggested a talent show, someone suggested an art show. I guess there's Shoreline Shorts every spring, and there's a lot of faculty involvement and staff involvement in that, and so could get involved in that. And there was one other really good idea. And then the food pantry on campus, a lot of students need that. Could we do something campus-wide to sort of encourage everyone to donate, maybe, and increase that? And the last thing, and I'll stop talking, is maybe having like a department of the month on DAG, or department of the week, or a periodic just highlight of, and students too, students, staff, their talents, the departments, what they do, just so we kind of know what everyone's doing on campus, and to sort of make it feel like a smaller place. Yep. So.
Thank you. Lots of really good ideas from all of the feedback here. So we certainly have heard, both in the first and in the second group, is the necessity of putting ourselves in our students' shoes and asking them and listening to them and not assuming what it is they need. And we also know in our jobs we have a balance with that, as Chris and her team were saying, because we do know some things they need. And so we have to work hand to hand with that. So thanks very much. Any others for inclusion that we want to add? Now, we are again going to collect all the notes. So if you didn't get heard, your voice will be heard on paper. Okay. The last group over in this section was discussing respect. And so who would like to give us some feedback, or give all of us feedback? Hands up.
So our group tackled the value of respect, and some examples that we came up with. Make expectations clear. When you punish somebody for something they didn't know they were doing wrong, it's good to make expectations clear ahead of time. And that kind of reminds me of Samira's point about setting achievable expectations. We also think it's valuable, like Beta said, to communicate with one another. So a salutation is a great way of showing a respectful entrance or acknowledgement. And we also hope to value multiple communication styles. It's true that intergenerational preferences exist when it comes to things like screens interrupting the flow of communication. So be aware that multiple abilities and disabilities, cultural differences exist when you're expecting a certain type of communication or respect.
I know they had a long list, so I know there are more things written down. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Table discussions. Respect, really, we have it all. I know there's lots of comments. Should I wander around and just sort of pick some?
Hello. Whoa, there is a delay. We found it very hard to define respect in very concrete terms, and I think that's just an issue with the concept of respect itself, is that it's hard to nail down. It's hard to say exactly what it is. So we found ourselves agreeing with a lot of the things on lists, almost all of it, but not really being so super moved by it. It's like, yeah, of course we have to be patient and helpful. That's that's what we all like to do, right? That's we all try to effectively communicate. And then when it comes time to start saying exactly how do you do that thing, that's the hard part. So we would advocate for less vague titles and figuring out how to get more specific with these actions. And we didn't make any headway in doing that.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, sometimes it's way easier to know when you've been disrespected than respected. So thank you very much. It's a good reminder for all of us. Yes?
So we talked a bit about the descriptions of behaviors up there as well, and we agreed with many of them, but we found a lot of them to be overlapping and thought it would be great to kind of bring the list down or condense it a bit in things of looking at effectively communicate, that active listening skills are really critical in effective communication. And then the follow-through and the demonstrating honesty and integrity and taking responsibility for your actions was part of following through. Creating an environment where everyone is supported and valued, that's part of caring and being patient and helpful. And one of the things we were thinking about was the way these values will be presented. The way we see our core values now that are posted up on different rooms, that we could imagine seeing these values up there and having 2 or 3 bullet points that really inspire you to think about the way in which you'll act and the way in which you carry yourself every day here. And that's what the way we were thinking about this list and trying to condense it and make it a little more concise.
Thank you, very good point. We must have some good English teachers in the house, so thank you, among other kinds of faculty. Anyone else? Other tables?
Hi, I'm Jenna. So we were talking about how these seemed very vague to us for descriptions. So we were trying to drill down into what behaviors we were actually trying to do. But then when it came down to behaviors, it's looking at cultural competency and thinking of people's backgrounds and how does respect look to people who are different than myself, and how do you have that conversation about what respect looks like. We talked a lot about how communication and follow-through were really big pieces of respect. as well as we have a new bullet point, which is called Give People the Tools They Need to Succeed. So that's the resources, their schedules, check-in meetings, and those clear expectations.
Thank you very much. Any others in this section? Oh, Anne's right behind you with the microphone.
Hi, this is Karen from tutoring. One of the things that may have been implied in the respect, but is not really stated, is that we need to think about how our actions, and we need to intentionally focus on how words, actions, and decisions are going to affect others, which then in turn can guide the behaviors and communication that are appropriate. So that's it.
Right, thank you. Any others? Okay, thank you again. Please leave all your written on materials on the tables and we'll collect those and compile it all again, and you'll be seeing a compilation and summation of this work in the future. And again, our applause for each one of us for the energy you put into this. So thank you so much.
So you can see where we started were with the underlined words, and what we want to do is to be quite consistent and faithful to what people had said to add to that. So as you can see, we really want to crystallize those behaviors related to these three values. So as Guy was saying, when we see them, they trigger, oh yeah, that's what I should be demonstrating, and it's clear to other people. So we've made great progress, and I appreciate that you're here and that we're continuing on this, because it matters. It matters that students know that they can count on a consistent kind of response when we talk about respect at our college, when we talk about being inclusive or inclusion at our college, and around student engagement, what we all mean by that. So I'm going to take the next piece and begin talking about how we got to our values, and it came out of the discussion about our core themes. And core themes is this particular term that is associated with accreditation and talks about mission fulfillment. And as we were looking, and many of us have had several days of being at the commission, I'm looking at Beta, at Allison and at Stewart, we had lots of conversations about core themes and other things related to accreditation. And we realized that many of our core themes really talked about what we care about, how we want to create the conditions and the experience at Shoreline. And so what I tried to do was to take out our current core themes and show how they now are part of other documents that talk about who we are as a college. So the first one in our current core theme, it's around educational attainment and student success. Well, as we look at our college identity, student engagement, which is hopefully where we may land in terms of the word for one of our values, came out of that student identity work. So we kind of see those sort of pieces around student success landing there. Program excellence, that's in our vision, where we say we want to be recognized for excellence and inclusive excellence in student success. I said student success, I'm sorry, I've lost my mind here. What? Community engagement, thank you. I lost my thought there. But that's now subsumed into our vision statement. Community engagement is also in our vision statement. Access and diversity around respect and inclusion, around our values. And college stewardship is around our 3 E's, as I mentioned, ecological integrity, economic vitality, and social equity. So we've taken those and we've moved them within the documents. So that leaves the question, what's going to happen to our core themes? Our core themes talk about mission fulfillment. How do we know when we are making progress on our mission? Currently, we refreshed our mission to say we serve the educational, workforce, and cultural needs of our diverse students and communities. So the question mark is, what should those core themes look like? Because we have to measure them, we have to show progress, we have to show kind of current state where we are, and progress that we're making. So that's going to be the conversation that's going to happen at the department and division level in spring. And I think it's going to be really exciting because it's going to connect up the work that you've heard about with our Student Achievement Initiative, some of those metrics. So all of this now is going to have a thematic whole. And so stay tuned. So again, our core themes, many of them now part of the other documents that are so meaningful to us, our vision, our mission, and our values, and then we're going to take our core themes and really connect them. How do we know? How do we know we're making progress to helping our students complete and finish what they start? So, you know I like threes, right? So hopefully we won't have 5, but hopefully we'll have some range of 3 to 5 core themes that help us to monitor progress toward the things that we really care about in the work that we do. So, what can you expect for spring update? We're going to refine these values and demonstrated actions. We're going to do exactly what Guy said. We're going to take all the things, thank goodness for Julie and Lori. They're going to help us see how those things come together. We'll take them back out to our students like we did this past term. We'll bring them back to division department meetings for you to have a look. We'll take them to admin team, college council, and some other folks. So please, thank you for your engagement. We really want them to be meaningful. We really want them to spark and inspire us to do the good work we do every day. We're going to explore those core themes, as I mentioned, and discuss them at department meetings. You know, how do we know? As I said, how do we know when we're making progress and continuous improvement at our college around the things that help us know the things that we care about? And our community says that we're making a promise when they come here for their educational, workforce, and cultural needs here at Shoreline. And then finally, we'll do some updates on the strategic plan, and we'll do some reporting out on the progress that's made as we take a final kind of a look at what happened this year with an eye toward what's going to be ahead of us in 17-18. So with that, we have a few minutes left to do what we always love to do, which is to evaluate. How did it go? What really worked well today? How can we improve? We take your feedback very seriously and add to make this a much more engaged conversation for us for the hour and a half that's so important for us to come together. So again, thank you so much. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend and look forward to, I think we're moving into week 10 of winter term. So thanks so much and have a great weekend.